Hey there, my name's Niandra, and I just want to quickly talk about the January 9th PTR patch note. Overall, I think they're solid, and since they're mostly small number changes, I kinda hope we're not waiting super long for this to go through. To begin, we have Baptiste with a nerf to Immortality Field's maximum duration and cooldown, which I think is fair. One thing I was kinda looking out for was maybe changing the cooldown to begin once Lamp is destroyed instead of deployed. With a shorter duration, it'll move the ability more heavily towards being reactive only, like in response to say Graviton Surge, rather than, okay, we're at this corner, let's hide it behind a wall and bunker down, which, yeah, that's fine. A part of me does wonder if maybe 6 seconds would have been more appropriate, just to make it a bit more consistent with most DPS ults. Baptiste also had his ultimate cost increased by 20%. I remember when the global 12% ult charge nerf went through, and for me, Moira and Baptiste were the least noticeable, with the latter just barely affected. On the Blizzard forums was a thread called Rip Baptiste, and one of the posts said, sure, DPS heavy players can get it really fast, which I disagree with. Being more aggressive is absolutely something I need to work on with Baptiste, and I still find it really easy to get amped super fast due to the huge amount of ult charge given for hitting AoE healing. Amplification Matrix is like a real tough one where it has huge potential, but it's also super easy to just get zero value from it. 20% might end up being too harsh in future, but I don't think it's the end of the world, and I definitely think it'll help out in GM, even if it doesn't change much in the mid-ranks. Overall though, Baptiste has just kinda made me realise how desperately I want Blizzard to communicate with us more. I remember back in November we got a buff to Baptiste damage, and it just left me so confused because I didn't feel like he needed it. His pick rate may not have been great, but that was because Moira dominated the meta so much, and not running her against a team who did was just an uphill struggle. This confusion was amplified even more by the change not having a developer comment underneath it. It would have been a lot more reassuring for them to say something like, okay, we've decided to buff Baptiste's weapon to compensate for future Immortality Field nerfs that we're going to be experimenting on, or just like anything would have been better than the confusing nothingness that we did get. The thing is, Blizzard is very private with the data they use to back up their statements, and since private profiles, it's much harder for the community to then do it themselves. Look at Rainbow Six Siege, which provides a graph showing win delta and pick rate every season. Sure, it's not the most clearest thing in the world upon initial viewing, but something like this for Overwatch would go such a long way. Moving on though, let's talk Mei, who had her slowing effect reduced in length and how much it reduces movement. I remember when we got that big tank patch, a few people asked me if I thought Dive would return, and my answer was, I'm not sure. Even though Winston and D.Va have both been buffed, neither Mei and Reaper have been touched, so I think this is a really good change. In my State of Symmetra video, I mentioned characters like Mei who were niche upon game release have been buffed over the years to be more general purpose, cause specialist heroes kinda fell behind. One of my biggest regrets with that video was not mentioning that Mei is more of a cautionary tale in regards to that sort of balance, that it's something you really need to tread carefully with. Personally, I was kinda hoping for like maybe a second of freeze immunity after your last one wore off to prevent being chain frozen. I feel like this would do wonders in toning down the frustration aspect for very mobile heroes, especially tanks. I also think multi-freeze is just complete horseshit, and so do all the players who have gotten mad at me for playing Mei, but I don't know if removing it would like make her too weak or something. I was also kinda surprised that Reaper wasn't given a small lifesteal nerf alongside her. Feel free to disagree with me on this, but I just kinda feel uneasy with heroes that specialise against tanks now that roll-lock is a thing. We've already seen a lot of issues in regards to low tank population with stuff like, Diamond GM players paired together, so I don't feel like the game can afford to discourage players from a role that is just already so clearly least popular. Moving on, next is D.Va, whose boosters have been reduced from 5 seconds to 3. I gotta be honest, I don't know how I feel about this one, at least, if nothing else, it makes her more fun to play. I do feel like D.Va is in a very poor spot, besides mobility, there's no real reason to pick her over Sigma, and this does amplify that single advantage. I don't know here. I guess my main concern with this change is, we buff D.Va, it doesn't do anything for various reasons relating to other heroes, but then the meta shifts away from them later down the line, and suddenly D.Va just feels too oppressive, which is kinda what happened with Baptiste in regards to Moira. Moving on, Orisa, whose fortified damage reduction has been lowered by 10%. Again, yeah, I think this is kind of okay. Orisa's still strong since her mini rework despite the shield nerfs because the rest of her kit and general survivability make up for it. My only other suggestion would be to consider looking at Halt. I think I said in my previous patch note rundown that 7 meters can feel pretty oppressive and means the user doesn't have to be that precise to hit enemies. The slowdown afterwards is also a bit ugh, but I am super biased against anything CC related. Really though, I'm hoping by toning down Mei and Hanzo, that'll help other tanks flourish. After a hero is meta or mandatory for so long, a lot of people don't care if that character ends up in the dumpster because they're just so glad to be free from having to play them. Honestly, I get it, I found it with Moira, but overall I don't think it's a good way for the game to go. Ideally, Orisa should be good, but so should other tanks to provide variety. Moving on, Hanzo. I don't have much to say on this one, I'm fine with it, I think it's a good start. We may need more nerfs in future if this doesn't address enough. I'm wondering if Leap will end up getting hit because Hanzo still doesn't really have any downsides, although he may be weaker for a while as regulars have to readjust their muscle memory. A super tiny nerf could be to make Sonic Arrow louder, because I don't know about you guys, but I can almost never hear it on top of all the other in-game sounds, especially with voice chat thrown on top. In my opinion, Astra's more in line with what a sniper should be in Overwatch, and that's why her pick rate in the league is basically 0. She has to compete with Widow and Hanzo, who can one-shot if they hit the head, and also don't have to worry about damage drop-off like Ashe does. Last of all is Doomfist, and I'm gonna skip him because I have literally nothing. Since I'm a Mercy channel, I'd actually like to end the video talking about her. Personally, I think she's in a weird state right now where she really struggles when paired with Lucio or Zen. Like, it can work, but it's way more effort than Bap Zen or Ana Lucio, so you might as well not bother, and honestly, more often than not, it's just slightly not enough healing. If you run Mercy with another main support, she's really strong, but the team lacks a proper defensive ult, which places her in this weird spot where she's neither main or off healer. If Blizzard continue to nerf other healing and damage, she'll feel better by comparison, and I understand the hesitation to directly buff her because she's such a precarious hero. But I'd love to see a small healing buff to solidify Mercy's role as a main healer again. Like, keep in mind, she'll still be single target competing against AoE healers, which the last 2 metas have been based around. There's also apparently a bug where Symmetra's teleporter now deploys instantly. I actually kind of want to see this make it through to the main game because it'll be better for getting allies out of grabs and just helping them in general, plus reduce some of the overall clunkiness. Yeah, so just, sneak it through, Blizzard, we won't say anything. And that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching, feel free to check out my Patreon, and have a nice day.